Released just today by the House Oversight Committee was Jeffrey Epstein's Birthday Book, a grotesque tome compiled by his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell for his 50th birthday in 2003. 3 entire years before the sex allegations exploded into public view in 2006. And inside of this book are some absolutely disturbing revelations, darker than I even thought were possible. I'm telling you, what was released today is incredibly shocking. So let's take a deeper look. Released for the first time by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, this birthday book is a cesspool of revealing photos of women, cryptic messages from high-profile friends, and a parade of suggestive sketches that ooze obscenity. The contents are meticulously split into sections by the sender's relationship to Epstein. There's a section for family, a section for girlfriends, a different section for girl-friends, which is a category hinting at blurred lines of intimacy, a section for friends and colleagues, and a section for Epstein's assistants towards the very end. Every lewd detail, every redacted face, every verbatim whisper of flattery or filth, I'm going to dissect it all here today, drawn solely from reporting that's emerging this morning and this afternoon from sources like Sky, CNN, and the Wall Street Journal, without any mercy or omission. And I want to state to everybody out there, this is not a political video. And I want to remind everybody online that the Epstein scandal at its very heart is not political. It is, at its core, a fight of good versus evil, a fight to expose powerful holding positions of power that were provided children to on a silver platter by various world governments, including the United States, Israel, and others. But for now, let's focus solely on this birthday book and the new information that's emerging today. Epstein's Birthday Book kicks off with a handwritten prologue, scribbled onto the page by none other than his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's lover turned friend turned partner in crime. In Ghislaine's writing, she addresses the 50-year-old Epstein directly, her words dripping with personal investment, saying, quote, "I hope you will derive as much pleasure looking through it as I did putting it together for you," end quote. This opening salvo sets a tone of affection and frames this birthday book as a labor of love from the woman who would later face her own reckoning for her complicity in the sex of alongside Jeffrey Epstein. Accompanying this intimate dedication from Ghislaine is a photograph of Jeffrey and Ghislaine together in 1991, which was pulled straight from the book and to my knowledge is an image that has never before been seen publicly. The photo captures the two in a moment of apparent bliss, Ghislaine's arm linked around his before the scandals stripped away that facade. The photo itself bears no redactions, no marks, and it anchors the book's voyeuristic gaze on the history of one of the world's most powerful, most infamous, who was murdered by those that he chose to serve children to. At the beginning of this book, you can find a table of contents. According to reporting from the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton were listed under the Friends section in the book's table of contents, along with about 20 other associates. Other people were grouped under categories such as science, Brooklyn, and family. While many of the letter writers for this book weren't famous, weren't recognizable names, some categories indeed had notable people within them. Flowing seamlessly from the prologue, the early pages of Epstein's Birthday Book immediately delve into messages from Epstein's family. These entries, placed at the very start, offer viewers a veneer of normalcy, a stark contrast to the depravity that unfolds later in the same book. In one letter, Epstein's mother, Pauline Stolofsky Epstein, wrote that she's been very busy reminiscing since Ghislaine asked me to write about you. "Jeff, you have been a good son since day one, and we have been proud of you ever since," his mother said. "I recall you refused to sleep as a child unless I read a story from Grandma's golden book that she bought for 25 cents. She added, "At PTA meetings, I begged your teachers to improve your handwriting." She also referenced Epstein's life as a bachelor, as well as his prominent media shoutouts. At age 21, Cosmopolitan magazine featured you as Bachelor of the Month, Pauline wrote. "Today, you still hold that title. Jeff, I'm so sorry that Dad can't share the naucus, which means pride, we have regarding your achievements," she added. He would have been overjoyed reading the article about you in the New York magazine. The birthday book itself features hundreds of photos from throughout Epstein's life up until age 50, including pictures of him as a child and as a teenager. Interwoven with the family tributes are photos of Epstein in his younger years, some of these images being partially redacted in the released documents, shielding identities or details, but they depict a pre-wealth Epstein, raw and unpolished, an Epstein that existed before the Epstein we know today. Several of these photos bear captions in the book itself, though the exact wording isn't specified beyond their existence in the articles I could find online. But according to the reporting, these annotations found beneath the photos serve to add layers of self-mythology to Epstein's portraits. This visual section builds a chronological arc that shows Epstein's transition from boyish innocence to the man who would amass fortunes, secrets, and thousands of victims. The structure rigidly separates entries by relational silos, with family and early photos clustered up front, and no obscene intrusions yet. But the groundwork for these revelations is laid. Also, it should be noted no phone numbers, addresses, or additional scrawls are detailed in the book here. It's a sanitized familial embrace before the elite filth creeps in. These messages form the bedrock of the book, humanizing Jeffrey Epstein in his own curated narrative, as they paint him out to be honest, just an average guy. An average famous rich guy, to be specific, but it really just seems like these letters and notes are from family members writing to someone that they love. But as the pages continue to turn, the discoveries only get darker and darker. These opening salvos paint Epstein as a man cherished by those who he loved, and who loved him back. But as we continue on through the book and turn the pages, the high society sleaze begins to seep through the cracks. Diving directly into the high-profile cesspool, we hit the birthday note from Donald J. Trump, a letter that the president has vehemently denied sending, which he has branded as being fake. This entry seems to be a masterpiece of vulgar artistry, words inscribed inside the drawn outline of a woman's nude figure, her curves sketched in crude lines that scream provocation. The note itself opens with a very theatrical line that says voiceover, meaning that you're supposed to read this letter from Donald Trump's voice, from his point of view, and from Epstein's. It then spirals into a presumably fictitious dialogue between Donald and Jeffrey, where they muse on sharing certain things in common. Cryptic euphemisms that reek of shared vices, unspoken and filthy. The letter reads as follows. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything. Donald. Yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey. Nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald. We have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey. Yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald. Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me last time I saw you. Donald. A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Now, sealing this bizarre letter, as you can see, is Donald J. Trump's very recognizable signature, sprawled across the woman's waist in some sort of scrawled mimicry of pubic hair, thick and absolutely deliberate, evoking the rawest of bodily exposures. The full image lays bare this lewd birthday greeting without textual redactions, though the implications from the letter hang incredibly heavy. Obviously, what was Trump talking about there? Something about enigmas, wonderful secrets. It's all some sort of coded language that I'm assuming, and this is my opinion, is talking about knowledge of something secret that Epstein was doing at the time, and we know what that was. It was trafficking young. Now, after this letter was released, Trump immediately deflected and fired back, saying, quote, "These are not my words, not the way I talk. Also, I don't draw pictures," end quote. That point, though, was refuted when people actually found pictures that Donald Trump had drawn at around that exact same time period of the New York skyline, so that were auctioned off. So he did draw pictures, and it was around that exact same time when he drew those pictures, which is just crazy that there are actually other pictures that he drew from around that same time. But obviously he's not going to admit to this. Then you had White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who also joined Trump and doubled down on the lies, saying, "As I've said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation." The note first surfaced partially in the Wall Street Journal in July, igniting Trump's fury and a lawsuit to sue the ass-off owner Rupert Murdoch. Tethered to the letter, however, is a partially redacted image that you can see right here on screen of Epstein clutching an oversized check. This is new information we're receiving today, and as we can see if we look closely at the photo, the massive check seems to be signed DJ Trump, or Donald John Trump. Below the photo, a handwritten note gloats, saying verbatim, "Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women. Sells fully depreciated, redacted, to Donald Trump for $22,500, end quote. The redaction on this document veils what the item that Epstein allegedly sold to Trump was, but I've seen discourse online and reporting that's caused me to believe that the check is potentially describing the sale of a woman from Epstein to Trump. Not an official sale, but more of something that would have been written down on the check as a joke that would look incredibly wrong if viewed through today's lens, knowing now what we do know. Epstein's grin dominates that photo as he brandishes the massive prop check like a trophy of transactional sleaze. It should be noted that it has also been reported that this photograph of Epstein holding that check that has Donald John Trump's name on it was taken at Mar-a-Lago, Trump's kingdom and sanctuary that Epstein and Maxwell frequented in the late 90s and 2000s. Now, I know that there are some of you out there who don't believe that this is actually Trump's writing, but the evidence here seems to say different. The signature at the bottom of the letter is 100%, just looking at it, Donald Trump's signature. Now, did he actually sign this letter? I guess that's the only thing here that could potentially be up for debate. I don't know why this would have been faked at this point in the narrative. At the time that this birthday book was assembled, Epstein had yet to have been arrested a single time for crimes against. At the time, around 2003, that this was put together, Epstein was just another rich, politically connected, powerful billionaire gallivanting amongst elite circles like some sort of new-aged Jay Gatsby. I don't see how you can still defend this one or why they're still saying that this is fake when it clearly, to me, isn't. I mean, obviously, you can see that this was sent in by Trump, or at minimum, Trump's team. And as for Trump and his team's very public, very adamant denials, I do want to remind you of Trump's friendship with the late Roy Cohn, one of the inventors of sexual blackmail. You can check out my video about the chicken and the bull's ring to learn more about that, how Roy Cohn and J. Edgar Hoover invented sexual blackmail at the Plaza Hotel, which Trump would go on to own later in his life, videotaping politicians while they were engaging in acts with supposedly individuals, and then using that video and photo material to blackmail them. Sounds very similar to Epstein, right? But Roy Cohn taught Trump a lot of lessons. This is public knowledge. Trump's talked about this. Specifically, Roy Cohn taught Donald Trump the strategy of denying everything as a core tactic to avoid accountability and maintain control of all narratives. This lesson emerged to Trump during the 1970s when Trump, facing a race discrimination lawsuit from the U.S. Department of Justice alongside his father, hired Roy Cohn as his lawyer. Cohn advised Trump to never admit guilt, even when evidence was strong, and instead to counterattack aggressively. For instance, despite employee confessions of discriminatory practices, Trump, following Cohn's guidance, denied all allegations and even fired off a countersuit against the government for $100 million. Sounds like something from Austin Powers. $100 million. Roy Cohn's philosophy was that admitting wrongdoing was a sign of weakness, and he encouraged Donald Trump to, quote, just deny everything and fight, end quote, a principle Trump has reportedly applied throughout his business and political career. And the photo of the check and the caption, allegedly taken at Mar-a-Lago, yeah, when you look at all of this together, along with the fact that Trump is listed in other parts of the book, you're going to see what I'm talking about. He was in the table of contents as well. It's all a really bad, really damning look, and I still don't understand how people can defend this. Trump's spectral presence haunts these spreads, but the international rot spreads even wider still. We have plenty more to go through in the birthday book, plenty more that's plenty more disturbing. The parade of elite debauchery exposed in Epstein's birthday book continues with what appears to be a birthday note from current United King ambassador to the United States. Yes, I said current. He was appointed to this position in 2024 and assumed this position in February 2025 under the Trump administration. UK ambassador, a man named Lord Peter Mandelson. Lord Peter Mandelson is already a controversial figure who, in the United Kingdom, has, over the years, gained himself the nickname the Prince of Darkness. He received this nickname when, in 1985, the Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock appointed him as the party's Director of Communications in the UK. As director, Lord Peter Mandelson was one of the first people in Britain to whom the term spin doctor was applied, and he thus gained the reputation of being the Prince of Darkness, essentially a long-winded way of stating that Mandelson is an expert liar. For example, in public relations and politics, spin is a form of propaganda achieved through knowingly providing a biased interpretation of an event. While traditional public relations and advertising may manage their presentation of facts, spin often implies the use of disingenuous, deceptive, and manipulative tactics. So, Lord Peter Mandelson, the Prince of Darkness, is such an expert liar and propagandist that he's literally gotten himself the nickname the Prince of Darkness in his home country. Seems like just the kind of guy that Epstein would have liked to keep in his inner circle. And this isn't the first time that Lord Peter Mandelson has been linked to Epstein. For example, in 2019, the UK's Channel 4 aired an episode of their show Dispatches in which a source close to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein claimed that Lord Peter Mandelson, while serving as a UK cabinet minister, made a phone call to Epstein in order to set up a meeting with him and Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan. In June of 2023, an internal JP Morgan report from 2019, filed to a New York court, found that Jeffrey Epstein appears to maintain a particularly close relationship with Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and Lord Peter Mandelson, a senior member of the British government. However, that relationship was never fully explored by investigators or the press. In February 2025, after being appointed the United Kingdom's ambassador to the US, when he was asked about his relationship with Epstein by news organization the Financial Times, Lord Peter Mandelson said, quote, "I regret ever meeting him or being introduced to him by his partner Ghislaine Maxwell. I regret even more the hurt he caused to many young women. I'm not going to go into this. It's an FT obsession, and frankly, you can all f*** off, okay?" End quote. That's an exact quote. He said that anybody who's questioning him about Epstein can go f*** off. You can find that quote online. While hearing that quote, one would think that Lord Mandelson was only introduced to Epstein, didn't have a relationship with him, and that he barely knew the man. The birthday book, however, seems to show their relationship in a completely different light. In the pages submitted by Lord Peter Mandelson to Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein's book, Mandelson wrote a number of notes and included a number of photos, writings in which he dubbed Epstein as my best pal, essentially his best friend. He also talks in his pages submitted about how Epstein, a quote, man they call mysterious, end quote, randomly parachuted in and out of his life, and he even talks about how he would sit when Epstein was gone, waiting for him to return back into his life. This entry then further reminisces about Mandelson and Epstein's first encounter, then slithers into an illusion. According to Mandelson's writings, Epstein would, quote, often leave one alone with some interesting friends to entertain, end quote. The ambiguity of the phrase interesting friends is paired with an image of two people, two women whose faces are obscured or redacted, their forms hinting at forbidden company without any further information. It should be noted that one of the interesting friends that Lord Peter Mandelson is pictured with and is probably referring to with that quote appears to be a very young, scantily clad woman in a bikini. The note from Lord Peter Mandelson teases further, reminiscing about the times that Epstein, taking you by surprise, in one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends, yum yum. The parenthetical yum yum that's actually written down in the note licks itself with a sensual sort of greed, evoking feasts of flesh in Epstein's opulent layers. The pages here bloom with pictures of Lord Peter Mandelson, one photo being of a tropical island, another one of Mandelson staring out of a window at the ocean, another picture of Epstein and Mandelson sitting together laughing, a third unspecified photo rounding out the message. The yum yum and the allusion to interesting friends with the accompanied image of bodies with redacted faces pulses with a sense of shared debauchery. And clearly this makes Lord Peter Mandelson out to be a much closer friend of Epstein's than he's ever cared to admit to publicly. Pivoting to American royalty, on another page of the birthday book, a message seemingly signed by former President Bill Clinton extols Epstein's childlike curiosity. The full fawning text of Clinton's letter to Epstein states, quote, "It's reassuring, isn't it, to have lasted as long, across all the years of learning and knowing, and also to have your childlike curiosity, the drive to make a difference, and the solace of friends," end quote. This scribbled note from Clinton lauds Epstein's endurance, intellect, and camaraderie, and frames him as some sort of ageless force of influence and solace. The entry from Clinton is text only, There are no photos, no drawings, no numbers, no other information. Just pure, unadulterated, unfiltered admiration that seems to gloss over the gathering storm. These political pages interlace flattery with filth, and you can see right here that former President Bill Clinton was a deep admirer of Epstein, just based on his own words. We're going to be exploring his connection with Epstein in a video coming very soon, but that's all that the book has to say about him. From yum-yum indulgences to childlike curiosities, the power players prostrate themselves, but the inner circle's raw edges still await. Towards the book's tail end, at least I should specify the tail end of what was released from the book, the assistants section erupts in breathless excess with an unsigned entry cataloging wild escapades that one assistant has had since being introduced to Epstein. And this is incredibly interesting. The first page from this writer, who is assumed to have been one of Jeffrey Epstein's personal assistants, it never actually shares their identity, states that, quote, "Before Jeffrey, I was a 22-year-old divorcee working as a hostess in a hotel restaurant." So clearly, this woman is saying that she was lost. She is essentially saying, you know, my life kind of sucked. No shame to anybody who's divorced or working in a hotel restaurant or a hostess. That's not what I'm saying. That's just what this is kind of portraying it to be. Because then she's saying it's like a Cinderella story, and on the second page, when she writes about what happened to her while working with Epstein, this is what she has to say. "After Jeffrey, I now live in New York City, have traveled to Paris, London, Milan, Copenhagen, Tokyo, Hong Kong, Stockholm, China, Singapore, Brunei, Bangkok, Bali, Ghana, Nigeria, Mozambique, Rwanda, South Africa, Morocco, Ireland, St. Tropez, Florida, St. Bart's, St. Thomas, St. John, New Mexico, Moscow, St. Petersburg, Aspen, ... I have met Prince Andrew, President Clinton, Sultan of Brunei, Donald Trump, Antonio Vargas, Naomi Campbell, Stephanie Seymour, Peter Brandt, Kevin Spacey, that's an interesting one, Chris Tucker, Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, brilliant scientists, lawyers, and businessmen. I have flown on the Concorde, gone skydiving, taken a flying lesson, been scuba diving, parasailing, attended a Victoria's Secret fashion show, seen the private quarters of Buckingham Palace, sat on the Queen of England's throne, rode on a racetrack with Max Poppies, learned countless skills, ... Obviously, that letter is shocking. So here you have an assistant of Jeffrey Epstein saying that they were given private exclusive access to not only Buckingham Palace, but so many other places. This assistant, through Epstein's connections, sat on the Queen of England's throne, which I'm assuming is extremely not accepted in British culture. I don't really know like how sacred the throne is, but I'm sure that normal, regular people just aren't allowed to go sit on the throne. They also state having been taken to the private quarters of Buckingham Palace. They mentioned a Victoria's Secret fashion show, and we all know Victoria's Secret's association with Epstein. And the celebrity name drops. Michael Jackson. I've heard Michael Jackson being involved in this, but he's specifically named here. You got another mention of Trump. Kevin Spacey. Think of all the things that have come out about Spacey. I could talk at length about that, and the theory that some people have that he's actually killed off some of his accusers. It's pretty wild stuff. But the letter itself name drops royalty and presidents like this assistant's conquests, the throne sitting, a profane desecration of royal sanctity. No dates or precise locations beyond the palace or contacts flesh this letter out, but the entry's feverish tone reeks of some sort of awestruck complicity in Epstein's dark realm. Throughout the birthday book, there are also scattered pages, not attributed to specific authors, that contain some disturbing remarks and photographs themselves. For example, there's this unsigned letter, which I find to be extremely disturbing, which reads as follows: Jizzies, a highly excited and distracted state of mind, not a cloud in the sky, peekaboo, who's watching who, to a collector of more than beautiful minds, he whom appreciates architecture, undulating landscapes, beauty marks, and I understood years ago after Ghislaine came to the Palm Beach horse show looking for what I thought was a horse that she was on a mission for a collection of breast photos, a compilation, of course, for you. I came to see you some months later. You told me to take off my top. With the usual Epstein smile, you looked at my breasts and said, "Ah, I was right. Memory served you correctly. The beauty mark was on the right breast. One quotable memory. To a true friend with whom I have shared many complicities. I love you and wish you the best next 50 years. P.S. I know from the phone exchange some years back, you like my BR hyphen. So Jeffrey, which word out of this text do you not understand? Just a beauty mark. And as you can see, the page itself is incredibly strange. It's honestly very well graphically designed. It seems like this took quite the amount of effort to put this together, but we don't know who sent that letter, at least not at the time that I'm making this video. Obviously, it's some really just disturbing stuff. Ghislaine is collecting a breast gallery. This, what I assume to be as a woman, is stating that she flashed Epstein and showed him her breasts and he liked them, and there's a beauty mark. He collects mines. And the author even says, to a true friend with whom I have shared many complicities, which is very strange too. Like, are you also complicit in this crime? Were you complicit in this activity? It's a very weird word to include there. Another poem included in the book on another page, but not attributed once again to any author in specific, says that Epstein would, quote, outrage the public decency on any occasion, end quote. It reads, quote, as far as I can detect, Jeffrey seems to select to express his mood terms rude, crude and lewd, and politically incorrect, end quote. It concludes with the line, quote, Jeffrey at half a century with credentials plenipotentiary, though up to no good whenever he could, has avoided the penitentiary, end quote. So then you got a poem here from an author who we don't know, talking about Epstein outraging public decency, being politically incorrect, lewd and crude, and even saying essentially with this poem that they're shocked Epstein has avoided the penitentiary, the pen, prison. I mean, the way that I read that is I'm assuming that this person knew what Epstein was up to. They knew that he had done some illegal things, whether or not that's something financial or I don't know. But they're literally saying, essentially, it's a shock that he has avoided the pen, which is just crazy. But we need to move on. Another contributor whose name has been redacted on some more pages of the book details how she, yes, she was a woman, met Epstein in the summer of 1985. The author of the letters shares several memories, including memories of the time that Epstein asked her, the woman, whether she was a virgin the very first time that they were left alone together, or how they once went shopping together at Bloomingdale's, where he, quote, proceeded to throw me down on the floor and started kissing and tickling me all over, end quote. This woman with the redacted identity included several photos of herself and Epstein with her letters, which have been edited, but they have been released to mask her identity. In one of the photos, she's pictured in underwear while looking in a wardrobe, and the photo was captioned, visiting you down in Palm Beach. Can't get a second of privacy with you and a camera around. Ha ha, end quote. Absolutely disturbing stuff. You have right there references to Epstein filming people when they're vulnerable in his Palm Beach mansion, which we know was rigged with the same security cameras and blackmail recording equipment that was rigged on the island and in the Upper East Side house. Talking once again about Epstein pushing her down on the ground in public, kissing her all over, asking this woman if she's a virgin the first time they're alone together. It's incredibly bizarre. Another contributor on a different page of the birthday book refers to Epstein as a brilliant and unpredictable friend, while another says he can maybe be a bear, but mostly a teddy bear, end quote. Creepy use of the teddy bear analogy there, typically something for children. And throughout the birthday book, there are also included hundreds of photos of women. Some women stark naked, others in skimpy bikinis. However, their identities have been partially or fully redacted for the release of the files. However, to my knowledge, no context was given to any of these images, and we don't know who these women were, why they were in Epstein and Maxwell's company, or even how old they were at the time that these photos were taken. These visuals intersperse the assistants and girl-friends messages, bodies bared in some form of voyeuristic, horny glory. One photo caps a woman's message with, "What else can I say but ... but being spelled B-U-T-T like someone's ass, trailed by an image of an unidentified man shoving his hand down the back of a woman's jeans. fingers vanishing into the cleft in a graphic grope of ass and intimacy. The obscenity here is absolutely unfiltered. The fabric is strained, the hand is intrusive, the act frozen in a tactile violation. Several such images stem from women in assistance entries, merging the narrative with naked provocation. And throughout the birthday book, complementing these female forms, are numerous shots of men in tight bathing suits, many of these pictures starring Epstein himself, Speedos hugging these men's crotches in displays of what looks like oiled machismo. Some Epstein photos also carried with them book captions, but I couldn't find any specific quotes. That all might come to light in the near future. No names or numbers were attached to any of this information, but the fact that the book was broken up into girlfriends and girl-friends distinguishes shades of conquest. Maybe the girlfriends were complicit in the or were even potentially brainwashed, groomed victims, and the girlfriends were legitimate girlfriends of Epstein's. I don't really know. But there's so much detail and so much nuance to this birthday book, it's absolutely astounding. And the fact that one of Epstein's own personal assistants was the one who included that photo of a hand in a woman's jeans groping her is incredibly disturbing. I mean, to me, that would show that the assistants might have had a clue what Epstein was doing, trafficking these women. Clearly, everybody here knows that Epstein, seems to be the most hypersexual, sex-obsessed fiend on planet Earth. We're going to get more into that later. It's really shocking stuff, isn't it? And now we have to get to the sections with Epstein's colleagues, his kind of work friends, if you want to call them that. In the colleagues corner, the first letter we'll talk about is from the late Bear Stearns CEO Alan Ace Greenberg, who delivers professional sycophancy without the sexual sludge. His message states, quote, "Working with Jeffrey has been a pleasure, and watching his meteoric success has given me many vicarious thrills," end quote. This entry, when read in full, toasts Epstein's finance wizardry. Vicarious thrills, a tame echo of the book's baser ecstasies. There's no explicit innuendo here, just mutual glory found in money-making. There were also no images or additional contacts or names attached to this letter, which serves, in a weird way, as a brief break from the rest of the smut. There's also a letter in this book from Les Wexner, one of the men who, according to many, helped create the Epstein enigma himself. According to all the people that I know one of the world's leading Epstein researchers who has been on the case for 15, 16 years, and he claims Wexner is guilty as sin. If you read One Nation Under Blackmail, you will know how guilty Wexner allegedly is in the entire Epstein saga. So it's interesting to see his name here. And the letter itself from Les Wexner, keep in mind, Les Wexner being one of the guys who created and owned Limited 2, the store for children, and Victoria's Secret. The letter from him contained a short message. It reads, quote, "Dear Jeffrey, I wanted to get you what you want, so here it is," end quote. And underneath the message is a drawing of what appears to me to be a woman's breasts. There you have more innuendo from another close friend of Epstein's. Ghislaine Maxwell herself also contributed to the birthday book later on and submitted her own letter with a collage of photos and captions, including pictures of Epstein's private jets and properties, as well as a photo of Epstein hugging a topless woman on a boat. Another page signed by Ghislaine Maxwell features a topless photograph of her in a pool with Epstein. It's unknown to this day who the topless woman on the boat with Epstein in the previous page is. Then there's Alan Dershowitz, one of America's most infamous lawyers, a man who famously once defended rights to consume and import child and even defended people's rights to import and watch snuff films. Films where men, women, and children are murdered on camera for real. We can talk about all of that in another video though. There's an audio recording, there's a couple of them of Dershowitz talking about this stuff. It sickens me to my core. It's so unbelievably disturbing that he would actually defend these people in the name of freedom of speech. It's really horrific stuff. So Dershowitz is a very, very dirty character in my mind. But the letter from Alan Dershowitz, who in fact represented Epstein in his very first criminal case in the 2000s, includes a disturbing photograph. It's a mock-up of a Vanity Unfair magazine cover with mock headlines. The first letter, though, from Dershowitz states, December 11th, 2002. Dear Jeffrey, as a birthday gift to you, I managed to obtain an early version of the Vanity Unfair article. I talked them into changing the focus from you to Bill Clinton, as you will see from the enclosed excerpt. Happy birthday and best regards, Alan. The magazine cover itself, doctored by either Dershowitz or one of his assistants, is disturbing in and of itself. Text can be found on the doctored magazine cover stating things like, "Life is a pure flame, and we live by an invisible sun within us. Jeffrey Epstein." Who was Jack the Ripper? Was it Jeffrey Epstein? Al-Qaeda in South America. Financed by Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein stole my heart. Bring it on, Jeffrey. Consume me, Jeffrey. Intoxicate me, Jeffrey. On another page included with Dershowitz's submission, it states, "Who was that man with Epstein?" Inquiring minds are asking, who was that man with Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein is, of course, one of the world's most famous men, a household name throughout the planet. His picture has appeared on the cover of every magazine in the world. Everyone knows his story, from his humble roots on Coney Island to his rise as one of the most envied public figures of the Western world. But what was he doing flying to Africa with an obscure former politician from Hope, Arkansas? Who is that politician, and why would Epstein have picked him for the coveted spot on his private jet? Vanity Unfair was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery man and to reveal the story behind the story. Normally, we would not pry into the private life of an obscure Arkansas politician, particularly one who has tried so hard, and up to now so successfully, to keep his private life to himself. But the moment this obscure man stepped onto the Epstein jet, he became fair game for a probing inquiry. Why would a man like Epstein, who can pick and choose his companions from princes to professors, select a flying companion from the Ozark Mountains? To be sure, he was a Rhodes Scholar, but we all know how easy it is to get a Rhodes if you're from Arkansas. There must be something else. Vanity Unfair decided to snoop around. The obscure politician reluctantly agreed to do an interview on the express condition that it was completely off the record. This is what he told us, ... And that's where the letter ends. Clearly, it is referring to Clinton and Epstein's close relationship, which obviously, as you can see here, many people in Epstein's life knew was a thing, and they knew that Clinton and Epstein were incredibly close. I mean, you have other people writing in for Epstein's birthday about his relationship with Clinton, so just kind of an interesting little twist. There's also a letter in the birthday book from a man named Leon Black, the co-founder of Apollo Global Management, an American asset management firm that primarily invests in alternative assets. Interestingly, as of 2025, the company itself had over $840 billion worth of assets under their management. The submission with Leon Black's name had a handwritten poem with a rhyme scheme that seemed to flow with some sort of cryptic meaning that I can't personally decipher. It was signed, though, at the bottom, "Love and Kisses, Leon." There's also a letter and photos in the book submitted by fashion designer Vera Wang, who joked in her letter about putting Epstein on The Bachelor and suggested that the two of them together should go on a shopping trip. Also included with Vera Wang's letters are photos of a grand piano and what looks to be a coffee drink, and the pages of her letters are lined with what I am assuming are star stickers. Then there's a 7-page letter from a man named Nathan Myhrvold, a billionaire and former executive with Microsoft. Nathan, in his letter to Epstein, stated that he was sending photos of his from a recent trip to Africa. They seemed more appropriate than anything I could put in words, the letter partly read, and as you can see in the photos that he included, they were all of animals mating. Very just disturbing selection of photographs, and it just once again plays into this whole sleaze, disturbing, bizarre sort of messaging that all of Epstein's friends are relating to him. It's like almost every single letter and writing has some sort of sexual, obscene reference. I mean, it's just crazy. But interestingly, and I actually found this pretty goddamn funny, a spokesperson for Nathan Myhrvold, the guy who sent those photographs of the animals having sex, previously told a news outlet that Nathan didn't remember sending the letter in for Epstein's birthday book, and they even said that he's this is hilarious, that this Microsoft executive is a wildlife photographer who, quote, regularly shares photos of and writes about animal behavior, end quote. I find this absolutely hilarious. I mean, look at these pictures. These are clearly graphic photos depicting sex acts between animals. And yet this guy's spokeswoman actually just tries to claim that he's an avid wildlife photographer who regularly shares photos of and writes about animal behavior, like he's some sort of Steve Irwin figure or something like that. It's like he works for Planet Earth. I don't know. What a joke. There's definitely obviously some sort of disturbing meaning hidden there. I mean, just Jesus Christ, look at the pictures. Then there's a particularly disturbing letter from a man named Jean-Luc Brunel, who ran a modeling agency, who later on in life was also accused of trafficking and being a who also died suspiciously in prison in France before trial by himself, just like Epstein, who says in his letter to Epstein that, quote, 10 is the most beautiful number, end quote. And in the same letter lists Epstein and himself, along with Pythagoras, Euclid, and Archimedes, 3 famous Greek mathematicians. As of the time of me recording this video, it is unknown what all of these scribbled equations that Jean-Luc left on the page mean, but I'm sure that there's something dark hiding just beneath the surface of this letter, waiting for someone to decode. And obviously when you have a writing to another that 10 is the most beautiful number, you can, I think, see what they could have been talking about there. Then there was Harvard economist and former dean Henry Rosofsky, who included a short handwritten note that read, "For the man who has almost everything, but never enough of these," end quote. Along with that short note that Henry sent in was included a pair of color images that are labeled in the birthday book as tit print. They appear to be literal imprints of female breasts, potentially done after covering a woman's body part in some sort of paint and then pressing the breast against a paper or canvas. Now, why the dean of Harvard, a man who is esteemed and has watched over the academic careers of so many students and appears to be a trusted scholar, would be sending his friend images of painted breasts pressed up against pieces of paper is unknown. It's once again just really bizarre stuff. There's also George Mitchell, who submitted something for Epstein's birthday book, a former United States senator and diplomat who submitted a letter that reads in part, quote, "Among your blessings has been the opportunity to lead a full, exciting, and fantastically varied life," end quote. In the letter, George Mitchell, the former US senator, also calls Epstein a good friend. That just goes to show that Epstein had very high-profile political connections for a very long time. He was very well connected in the worlds of finance, science, business, celebrity, politics. I mean, this just goes to show that he had connections everywhere. Fashion, art. In addition, there was also a letter from a man named Mort Zuckerman, who was then an owner of the newspaper, the New York Daily News, who said that he had searched his own newspaper, amongst others, for information about Epstein and joked that he had discovered Epstein was born in Liechtenstein and had a wife and 3 children there. Included with this letter are also some disturbing, bizarre photographs, once again, that appear for some reason unspecified to show President George W. Bush without a face, along with another man without a face. The meanings of these photos are not explained. I don't know who the other man is, but it's just incredibly strange, cryptic looking stuff. And there's so many mysteries in these pages, so many things that should be investigated further immediately. One of the pages of the released birthday book shows a card attributed to a man named Joel Paschow, reportedly of the Atlantic Realty Trust, a very wealthy group who was also reportedly a longtime member of Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, a frequent visitor to Mar-a-Lago. So there you have another Trump sort of connection. The card that Joel submitted to Epstein's birthday book disturbingly shows illustrations of a birthday cake, birthday balloons, a large airplane, and some scantily clad women. An image which I believe perfectly sums up Epstein and his trafficking operations. Pretty bizarre, right? This guy is actually putting a plane and women on the same page. Why? Wouldn't you just include a plane and then a picture of you and Epstein? Or, I don't know, I would never do it, but images of the women and Epstein. Why are you putting a plane and Epstein on the same page if Epstein isn't flying these women and trafficking them using the plane like so many people say he was? that, let me remind you, the Justice Department officially announced months ago that he wasn't doing. Which is, I'm not even going to get into it. But this is, in my opinion, where the most disturbing sketch in the entire birthday book comes in. Now, this incredibly chilling, I don't want to call it art, but drawing, comes from an unknown author and artist. And as you can see in this drawing, which I'm putting up on screen now, the artist seems to be depicting Jeffrey Epstein in the year 1983, as he approaches a group of what clearly are meant to be young girls, maybe, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, handing them a lollipop, just like a true, literally cartoonish. And it's very clear that these kids are meant to be younger than even. Then, on the same page with the same sketch, the same drawing jumps 2 decades into the future, into the year 2003, and shows Epstein receiving a massage from 4 scantily clad young women, a few of which appear to be wearing no tops. On one of the girls' butt cheeks, we can see the letters J.E., or Jeffrey Epstein, which appear to have been tattooed on in the image like some sort of sick cattle brand. I don't know who drew this or who submitted it to the birthday book, but this has to be the most striking, the clearest, the most disturbing sketch really of them all. I mean, I really have no words for this one. It's a very, I mean, you have Epstein targeting in this image, regardless if it's the same kids that are shown in 83 that are supposedly massaging him in 2003. If those are meant to be the same kids, clearly that's grooming, and we all know what that is. If not, if he didn't do anything to the kids in the years between. But just the fact that they're depicting these women giving him a massage, and it's a known fact that Epstein targeted these girls. And there were also boys involved that people don't talk about, that I've never really seen the media talk about. One of my very good friends who's worked on the Epstein case for a long time has told me that the youngest victim involved, I think it was a 6 or 8-year-old boy, which you never see the media talk about. But it wasn't just women. It was mostly women, but there were some young boys involved as well, according to reports. But yeah, Epstein was targeting his victims while he was getting these massages, and that was a part of the trafficking, is he would get these victims, force them to perform these sexual massages on clients. So to see that drawn out next to a picture of him handing kids a lollipop, yeah, there's just, I don't really know what more I can say about it. At the very end, though, of the 238-page abomination, Ghislaine Maxwell writes in the book one more time, with the final message to her best friend, and at the time, recently former lover. The book concludes with a section called The Next 50 Years. It only had 2 pages, and those pages included a photo of Epstein in a hammock and an image with the inscription stating, "Know when you are winning," and was signed, "Lots of love, Ghislaine." So, I might have missed a few things, but that is all that I could gather that has been released from Epstein's birthday book. There's a lot of information there. I'm sure there's going to be more coming out soon, but what does all of this mean? Well, analyzing all of this information, we can clearly see that there are a lot of allusions throughout the entire book to Epstein being a mysterious man. There are multiple people that call him mysterious, an enigma of sorts. That message is used a few times, that wording. This was stated verbally in multiple letters. Obviously, that means that even to his closest friends, Epstein was this mysterious figure. I don't know what was mysterious about him. Maybe it was his intelligence connections that they might have suspected he had. The trafficking, obviously, where he got his money. There's a lot of different things that are mysterious about Epstein. But we can also see in the book that Epstein was connected intimately, as in these people are writing him birthday letters for a birthday book, to all sorts of powerful political figures. From even the Sultan of Brunei to politicians in the United Kingdom, current at the time US politicians, former presidents, and even future presidents of America. He was also intimately connected, as you can see, in the finance, fashion, and science worlds. But above all, after analyzing this entire thing, the one thing that I can say that really sticks out to me personally is the fact that almost all of the letters or drawings or inclusions in the birthday book have some sort of weird sexual element to them. There are drawings of breasts. There are drawings of nude female forms. There are tit imprints. There are drawings, literally, of children being groomed. Drawings of Epstein receiving massages from naked women. Mentions of mysterious and entertaining friends that Epstein brings around. Hundreds, thousands of photos of scantily clad, sometimes fully naked women. Discussions of great memories and parties and island excursions. And even secrets that Epstein and whoever's writing him share. And I know for a fact that if someone made a birthday book for me on my 50th birthday, it would look nothing like this. And honestly, I would be absolutely horrified. I mean, this is just disgusting, disturbing stuff that these people are sending him. Tit prints and boob drawings and naked pictures of women, and it's just so creepy. Even the writing where women themselves are saying that Epstein pushed them down on the ground and kissed them and asked them if they're a virgin. It's all just so creepy. So why does it look like this, you ask? Well, in my opinion, it's probably because at the time, Epstein was in the middle of his child trafficking operation. The people associated with him believed Epstein would never be caught, as he had some sort of governmental or intelligence agency protection, and all the people that wrote into the book assumed that no one would ever see this book or the contents found within it. Literally, the images and photos and drawings and words in this book paint an incredibly damning image, not only of Epstein, but also of all of his friends. Just reading through these birthday letters, one would get the image, and one does get the image, that Epstein was an incredibly horny man, obsessed with sex and extremely young women and massages. And this book also shows that all those friends in Epstein's circles that knew him and were around him not only knew about this obsession and these dark desires, but they knew them so well that they actually included coded messages and sometimes direct, very obvious messages about these desires and proclivities in their birthday wishes. It seems to me like all of these people knew what was really going on, or at least had a clue about it, and they were all intent on keeping this mysterious secret with them and taking it to their grave. Now, this is an ever-evolving story. This is all just news that's breaking today. I had to hop in the studio and edit this myself really quick to get this out there. Sorry if the editing's a bit clunky, but I just really wanted to get this story out because I find it so shocking, and there's so much that's coming out. I'm doing an episode soon about Zorro Ranch and Epstein's genetic cloning and human hybrid. You just have no idea. That episode is going to be insane. I'm also doing an episode about Epstein's associations with Bill Clinton, just a full-on episode. I promised people. People said, why don't you're targeting Trump. Why don't you do Clinton? I already have in the past, but I'm doing it because I think he's even more culpable, in my opinion, than Trump is. Even though there's so much evidence, there's just other evidence that's like, wow. And then also, for those of you who subscribe to the channel, first of all, thank you. And I will be releasing an episode on Thursday. You know the date. It's a pretty big episode, so I would appreciate if you guys tune in for that one. But this is just a bonus video. Anyways, y'all, thank you guys for watching. If you support what I do here on the channel, please comment on the video and let me know your thoughts on this entire thing. Comments are so important. Like the video, share it on your social media, and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this show, please make sure to leave me a 5-star review, or come on YouTube, give me the view, and give me a comment, because I love hearing from y'all. Anyways, guys, keep that tinfoil hat on, always stay suspicious, question everything, and I will see you on Thursday.